Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. I am Jay, also known as the Sims Addict. So today we are building a pretty long speed build. So this is a first go around at my dabble in custom content. Mostly what's featured in this build is a lot of Peacemakers, mostly his Hamptons collection. Also, Harrie, her Heritage collection is also in this. So, I was able to utilize those. I tried to trim out as much as I could for this video. I didn't want it to be crazy long. And I also sped it up a little bit more than I normally do, so I'm sorry if that kind of makes anybody upset, or if you'll even notice it now. It's just literally a hair more than I normally do. So I actually didn't have any reference photos for this build. I just kind of like went off of what I wanted to do. I had a few general ideas. I mean, I had a lot of ideas for this build. I knew that I wanted it to be a like Hamptons, New England, Dutch colonial, really nice house. I knew that I wanted to incorporate those big arches that you see in the kind of carport going through there on the left hand side. That's kind of a main thing that I wanted to incorporate, and that is a part of Peacemaker CC. Once we get to it too, there's a couple of roof details that I kind of like the idea of. So we'll get to that here in a minute. Here you can see me doing I put a different shade of the shakes that are on the wall. Those are also a Peacemaker recolor of the cats and dogs wallpaper, I guess that's called. Yeah, I can't speak right now. But super happy with how this turned out. Again, I went with this kind of like Dutch colonial, very stereotypical Hamptons style, but I also included elements that kind of gave it like a French inspired, like a chateau type, just a weird little mix with it. I kind of focused on like certain areas. I like the realism of architecture and how it can like evolve, especially with older houses. And so I kind of imagine that this house in the 80s underwent some renovations, and the owners kind of liked French style, so that's where some of the roof lines and design features from the garage and then the back of the house come from. So here you can see I'm working on the kind of this like Dutch colonial roof. I guess it's kind of like a balcony, but I wanted that to be kind of like the main focal point of the front entrance, because I think how that has that like bit of overhang. I think it's really aesthetically pleasing. I also went with this metal roof. I think that kind of gave it a little bit more of like a rustic kind of feel to it. Don't get me wrong, this is a very bougie style house, but I wanted it to be something that's not like crazy opulent either. So yeah, I it does take me a while to do the exterior just because it's kind of, there were things that I like weren't happy with and things that I kind of struggled with, and then things that I wanted to like build off of. So I did like that overhang bit. I wasn't necessarily happy with how that room on the top of that kind of portico thing that you can see me working on turned out. So I just deleted that and then did the corbels, those wooden corbels up there, and then the round windows. It's very like seaside Hamptons build. One of the cool things with the Peacemaker, I'm assuming it's a he. I don't know. The icon is the sim is a male, so I'm assuming Peacemaker is also a male. Um, he makes a lot of content that's like add-ons for um, like game packs and expansion packs and everything that comes out. So, for example, he made a pack or a download folder rather that is compatible. It's like I think he calls them add-ons, and they are basically different styles and like different not different styles, but different sizes and different more options for the that go in with the style that the game pack came with. So he basically did, for instance, the cats and dogs windows, the circle windows. He made them like for 2 tile. He made them for like 3 tile, different sizes, and then like ones that come in like only one size. He made those like floor to ceiling for like larger windows, and so there's a lot more like option and a lot more depth to like the level of house that you can do. So I was really happy with how that came together, especially when I started working on like the back of the house and I had certain areas that I wanted like a bay window in, or yeah, I was just really happy with how that happened. And you can also, a lot of times like you're kind of restricted when you're going to build and you have like a 3 or 4 tile wide and you want like a specific window, but that's like not the size that you need, so you have to either like figure out a different window, like what you want, or you have to like resize the like house, and sometimes it doesn't necessarily work with like the sizing of it, and it doesn't really look as aesthetically pleasing. And with the CC, I've gotten kind of spoiled with that, and it kind of not necessarily spoiled, but it does good things for your creativity. So here is another one of the elements that I'm working on that kind of is like a French influence. I kind of did this, the metal mansard roof around this like exterior balcony. And like I said, there's just like subtle French influences. So that being one of them. There's, when we get to the garage, you'll kind of see that a little bit more too. I continued this, kind of overhanging structure bit on the back. Off of that, I also include a kind of like a pergola structure, or like a pergola structure off of the second story balcony. This back bit of roofing, you can see me play with it throughout the entire build. I wasn't necessarily that happy with how it turned out originally, but we eventually get to a spot to where I'm pretty happy and content with how it came out. So a lot of people put greenery on things like that, like it looks like plants growing up it. I kind of wanted to keep it a little bit cleaner, plus the plants that we have are a little bit big for that, and I didn't really want to size them down. I thought it would have looked weird, but I think it just looked a little bit nicer to be a little bit cleaner. I also work with a lot of terrain, well, not a lot, but some terrain tools in this build. So I kind of wanted the driveway to be like elevated to where that archway is like flat, and then there's like this big like roundabout area in the back where you can like access the garage, and then I think I put a car there at the end of the build. And then yeah, you can see here we're working on the exterior of the garage. I do use some Felixander here, just in making the garage doors. It's not 100% necessary, I think, if you didn't have Felixander, because his is Patreon only, and so you do technically pay for his custom content. So if you're not wanting to do any of that, if you downloaded this build just with the Heritage Collection from Harrie, and then the items that I used from Peacemaker, I don't think it would be that big a deal. You could find the garage doors from I think it's Get or City Living. Yeah, City Living. And it would work just as fine. It wouldn't be as like detailed as those, but it would work fine. Or you could just put doors on there. I really didn't put anything in the garage anyways, so it's all up to you. Rather than doing traditional dormers where the walls stick out of the roof line, I did this where it's like the wall is like flat and then the roof line kind of like fits the shape of the window, and I think that looks really good in terms of the, like I said, Dutch colonial style of the house. So yeah, so here you can see I did a big porch area off of the back and also the front. I didn't realize going in that this was going to have a huge, like a really big partial wraparound porch, but I'm not mad at it. I'm happy with how it turned out. Over here, this is something that does eventually change. I limit the use of those windows on the side, and so off camera here, I just went around and did the first part of the floor plan just because it took me so long to do. And here I am adding a fourth story just because I didn't like how that corner bit turned out. I do eventually change this in the build just because it was already a 3-story build with a basement, and then I added a fourth story to it. And once you get like past a certain number of like floors, houses in the Sims are kind of, it's not that they're not functional, it's just kind of hard to play with just because you can never find where your people are at, and it's kind of like frustrating like going up and down between levels. So I did think of it as being like empty space. I like emptied it out, but ultimately we do get rid of that, and I reworked the roof line, and I'm pretty happy with how it turned out in the end. I'm glad I didn't just leave it. So yeah, I did use a lot of the CC in this. It is mostly those specific packs, mostly like I said, mostly Peacemaker's Hamptons collection. Fell in love with his paneling that he did. I think it's awesome. Also this wainscoting, I don't think I end up keeping it in here, but I do put this in one of the rooms in this build. I think it's it's the master bedroom. I do put this like modular wainscoting in there. Really nice. I'm super happy with how that turned out. So yeah, I kind of rework some things, but working on a little bit of landscaping, kind of giving myself a break with the interior. But I really like how the landscaping turned out of this. It's kind of simple, but it's not super simple, but I think it blends in with the world really nicely. With this lot in particular, there's a lot of like grassy area around it, and then there's like fence line, like that's the edge of the property. And so I wanted to incorporate that. I didn't want it to look like it's like just the lot. I wanted the lot to kind of like go up to the edge, and then the rest of it look like it's like the lawn for the rest of the house, if that makes any sense. You'll be able to see it more in the screenshots. So here I'm kind of like building up the edge and kind of working with this terrain manipulation a little bit more. I'm just putting down the basic structure. I don't show all of the landscaping, but I do show a little bit by the garage of kind of like the base like plants and like my kind of idea with what I want to go with. I went with it's not like too cluttered. A lot of Hampton style gardens are pretty formal, and I didn't want to go like crazy formal with that, but it it does have kind of that continuity and that New England kind of feel. I think I use like quite a bit of hydrangeas and a little bit more like formal techniques, but it's also not very like rigid. It's very like loose. You can see me like kind of figuring out where I want to put the flower beds, and it's not like all squares. There's a lot of like curve to it. I think that kind of like freshened up the house. It didn't make it look, it makes it look more inviting. It didn't look as like I said, as rigid. And for some reason, I don't know what it was, but something about how the driveway, you can kind of like walk in on the side of that back porch, and then the way that it kind of like curves down, you end up going like to steps down to the pool area. I really liked how that turned out. I don't know, certain like weird things in this build like really pleased me, and then other things were just kind of like meh. But all in all, really happy with it. Something about the CC is really making me happier to build. I know that sounds weird, but it's just like there's so much more that you can do like creatively. So I'm really happy with that. So here you can see just kind of like the palette that I'm going to be using. I did a lot of like softer, lighter colors just because it is very the exterior of the house is kind of whitewashed. And so, yeah, so that's after the jump. You can see me going back to this roof line. I get rid of that kind of fourth story structure, and then I just kind of rework this a little bit, and I think it turns out good in the end. So yeah, there's also Felixander. There's like plants along the driveway, so again, there are other plants that you could like put there. I did figure this would be a family home, so I wanted to include this little like swing set area. I planned on this being like an elevated kind of like eating area before. I kind of had a like foundation place there, but I figured there was enough outdoor space and we didn't really have anywhere for kids, so I wanted to go with this. And then I'd figured it realistically, I mean, it's The Sims, it doesn't really matter, but it realistically didn't make sense to have the pool area that open, especially with like the swing set out there. So I do fence this off right now, as you can see. And I'm just really happy with how it turned out. So just working on that. And I do have a few builds coming up. I just recently was able to, I've had these builds for like a couple weeks now, honestly. I got a good like cache saved up of them, and I am now able to fully make a video because I had to figure out something with my storage. I had a friend help me with that, and I am now able to save the full videos and not just parts and pieces of it. So yeah, expect a few more builds, a couple bigger ones actually, a lot with CC. I do have these listed on the download or on my gallery page, but just keep in mind if you are downloading with CC, you're going to have to go into the like the left hand side of it, of the gallery page, and click the include custom content tab to be able to see it on my page. So just keep that in mind if you are looking for this build or any other future builds with CC. I don't think this is something that I am going to get rid of anytime soon because I love it and it's my channel. So yeah, over here we're just working on the exterior a little bit. I want to get these builds out not like crazy in order. Like I do kind of want to like stagger them coming out, but I do have a few more builds in the works. I do think that sometime in May though we're going to be getting a new expansion pack, so that'll be exciting. I think it's going to be, a lot of people are speculating, which I really don't know why. People are like, oh, it's going to be a, I don't know, it's going to be a something like a farming pack, or it's going to be this, it's going to be that. But the Sims team had also said something prior. I don't remember what it was, but it was one of the surveys that they did, and it was very geared towards what kind of activities would you like to do? And they were all like winter mountainous activities. It was like if you had to go skiing or snowboarding and like something like that. And it was, so I'm very convinced that if not a game pack, then very much convinced that it's going to be an expansion pack, and we're going to get some sort of like mountainous world. I'm assuming if it's things like skiing, or snowboarding and things like that, it's maybe going to be like an Aspen vacation mountainous type world. I don't think it's going to be like a vacation world. I hope it's not going to be a vacation world. We already have outdoor retreat, and I feel like that would be a little bit like redundant. But I think it could be cool. I don't know exactly what they would include in that kind of pack for it to be a full-blown expansion pack. Unless that's a game pack, and maybe there is some sort of other expansion pack coming out soon. But I feel like a full expansion pack is going to be coming out sometime this spring. Yeah, I just don't know exactly what it's going to be. I do know that I am going to be pretty disappointed if it is some sort of mountainous expansion pack and they don't utilize the terrain tools and give us a damn cliff lot. It's so annoying. The only lots that aren't flat are the Sulani lots and the waterfront ones, and you can't even change any of the terrain tools, which it's like they added the terrain tools, but it's like now you can't really like do anything with them. And I just think that it would be very I don't know, a missed opportunity if they didn't include some sort of cliff lot that you could build on. I'm thinking of it from a purely builder's perspective. I don't necessarily know what they would include / necessarily care that much what they would do in gameplay for a pack like that. That's not to say I never play the game, I do, but yeah, I don't know. I would just think that that would be a missed opportunity. I just don't know, because gameplay, or not game packs, but expansion packs typically have like quite a bit in them, so I don't know necessarily what they would include, unless maybe you can run like a resort or something. I think that would be pretty cool. I think that would be like really cool actually, and I think that might be something that a lot of players would enjoy. And I think that along with a new world would be enough for an expansion pack. Yeah, I think that'd be pretty cool. So looking forward to something like that. Don't think we're gonna get a farming pack anytime soon or any kind of rural pack. Even though it's something that I really would enjoy, the Sims team is really focused on catering to a more younger demographic. And I don't know. I don't necessarily know if that's like my age group. I'm 24. So I don't know, but I've also been playing The Sims for like basically since it came out, my whole life, since I was a kid. And there are certain things that like for instance, a lot of the people are upset that there's no like gameplay with teenagers or elders or anything like that. A lot of the gameplay is just geared towards young adults, which is fine. I think that this is obviously the best game yet, but it is lacking where other games kind of were better, like The Sims 2, in terms of interactions and the depth of which your Sims could be. So yeah, I don't know. We'll just kind of see what goes with that. Like I said, I don't really play the gameplay all that much, but I mean, I still do, and I think it would be cool, and I think it could be improved on. But I am rambling. So I did include this kind of like mudroom area, which has like the laundry area, and then I wanted to kind of clutter up that shelf there that you could see, with like the kids things and like coats and stuff like that. Um, really leaned into these like nautical colors. This is a I think this is, oh, I don't remember whose kitchen set this is. This could be Harrie's? No. No, I think this is a Peacemaker kitchen set. But I really like these like dark navies in this house with the whites and the like mid to light wood tones. I think it all like kind of went together very well. This was kind of an odd shaped kitchen. It's very large, so it was kind of weird to furnish. But one of the things that I think you can get away with a very light aesthetic or color palette like this is having a little bit more simplicity and then just like throwing some plants in there and it looks good. So I do that. But yeah, so talked about the pack coming up. So I'll probably have obviously packs coming or builds coming out if we do get a new pack like that. I would be curious to see what the kind of design aesthetic would be for that, like as far as the build styles or the build by objects. Because even if it is a mountain pack, I mean, that's not necessarily to say that it's like a US inspired mountain resort type thing. It could be European, it could be, I don't know, Europe and the US are the only ones that I really know. It could be Canadian, some sort of North American type thing, or European mountainous activity. Yeah, I don't know. We shall see, because we already have this kind of like lodge, again with outdoor retreat, this kind of like woodsy outdoor lodge type thing. So I don't know if that could feel a little bit more redundant, or, I mean, to be honest, those items could definitely use an overhaul. I think it was like our first game pack, and I don't know, it's just a lot of the stone textures are really weird and they look like fake, and it's very two-dimensional. There's not a lot of detail in it. So I think like the more rustic lodge type stuff would be welcome if they did it, a little bit better. Yeah, I don't know. I think it'd be really cool if you could like run a resort. You could like build this like lodge type thing. I think that would be gameplay that I would be really interested in. But alas, we shall see. Again, I had very interesting shaped rooms in this house. This entranceway being one of them. I didn't really want it to be a lot of wasted space, but one of the things that I do like, again with this custom content, is that there are a lot of bigger kind of filler items. So like that mirror, for example, it's very, it takes up a lot of wall space, and I kind of like that. Yeah, I wanted this to be, like, it's obviously a nice house. It's obviously very, it's not a cheap house, you can tell. But I did want it to have this, like, kind of, like, family vibe to it. I wanted it to be, like, accessible. Like, it might be, like, yeah, it might be in a magazine, but it's, like, in a magazine to where, like, oh, I want to live there. If that makes any sense. I didn't want it to be, like, too inaccessible looking. I did also create a family to go with this house. It is 2 moms, and they have a son and a daughter, and off camera I go through and do like photos, like family photos and things like that. So those will be along the house. If you don't like them and you want to put your family on them, you can just get rid of them. But I will also be uploading the family to my gallery page as well. I really thought I cut out the bathrooms, but I guess I did not. So there are, I believe, Oh, I don't even know how many bathrooms in this build. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think like 6 bathrooms or something crazy. Because there's one downstairs and then like I think 2 on the first floor. I don't even know. I can't count. I don't remember, to be completely honest. These Peacemaker rugs are like one of my favorite additions to the game. I don't necessarily, I don't know, it's one of those things I don't, and looking at custom content, I don't like things that are very, so for people who aren't familiar with it, there are 2 different kinds of custom content. There's something that's called alpha, which is very usually high poly items, but high poly in a way that it doesn't match the aesthetic of the game. So, for instance, the game is a little bit cartoonish, and they would be, I don't know, kind of like if you copied and pasted a picture of a magazine and like put it in the game, is like the best way I can like think to describe it. And it's not to say it's a bad thing, it's just like a personal style thing. And then there's also Maxis Match, which is the style that I prefer. And that basically just means that the custom content that people make, they try to make it to where it looks like it fits in with the game. It fits in with the aesthetic of the developers and what they try to go to with the surrounding world and the existing items and things like that. So that's kind of what I go for. These Peacemaker rugs I kind of struggled with because they do look a little alpha to me, but also they don't, because I was going through some of the textures from the Sims team, like the objects that we already have in game, and the newer items that they have started including in recent packs, like University and things like that. They have had a little bit more texture to them, and they're not just kind of like flat and, I don't know, flat shapeless things anymore, especially with like fabrics. So compared to our base game rugs, because we haven't really gotten a whole lot of rugs like that, it does look a little bit alpha, but like they're really not, just because it has like a little bit more texture. And obviously some look more than others, but it's the ones that look more alpha are the ones that have a little bit more detail, which I don't know, I think it was just like a personal thing that I had to kind of get over, because it's, again, I don't think it's not necessarily Maxis Match. I think it was just like because I was so used to Maxis not making good quality rugs. Yeah, I said it. And that's the reason that I had to kind of get over it, because I liked it. Here you can see me kind of working on the master bedroom. So the master suite is pretty expansive. It had the very large master bedroom, and then there's this big master bathroom. It's an ensuite to the this little hallway that you first walk into, and it has the like a built-in shower, private toilet, things like that. To the right of the bathroom, kind of to the right of the hallway that you first walk into in the master, is a closet, and that is one of 2 walk-in closets. That is kind of the smaller one, and then to the left, going through the bathroom, is the larger walk-in closet. I kind of like that. I kind of went with these a little bit more dated tiles, but updated fixtures, if that makes any sense. So they kind of kept these like aqua older tiles with the like trim and everything, and like the doors, but they updated like mirrors and like things like that. So I kind of wanted to play with the blend of modern and traditional in this build. Also, I didn't really include any actual dressers in these but walk-in closets, just because these cabinets in the full setting look way better and way more realistic for a walk-in. So using Felixander's free content and Harrie's content for the bathroom set, um, I use that pretty heavily in this build. And then also Peacemaker's carpet. Again, that carpet is something that we're used to the really crappy poly base game carpet because they haven't included any good ones recently. The vampire ones were pretty good, but they kind of have like a niche to them. But I really like this just like simple woven textured carpet. I think it looks really, really good. I'm probably going to use it a lot. And I don't really use carpet in a lot of builds, but I think it's just because the carpet we had was trash. And I think I might include carpet more often, especially in like kids' rooms like this and bedrooms. I think it's a look. So yeah, here we are working on a toddler's room. And again, I kind of like struggled with this floor plan. So what I kind of ended up doing was making a playroom off of the side of this toddler's room. And I thought that was a pretty good idea, especially considering this room isn't that big. And I just kind of like kept the toddler playroom just kind of basic, a few toys, the dollhouse, things like that. And there's a study on this floor, and then the third floor there's two more bedrooms, which has the son's room. And yeah, I like how that turned out. I used a lot of these decals, which I don't really do. I'm gonna be honest, usually like kids' rooms kind of annoy me just because like I don't like going through and trying to find all the clutter objects and things like that, because there's like pressure to make kids' rooms like bountiful. Like you have to be a good parent by having a bunch of toys in your kids' room for it to be aesthetically pleasing. You can tell I don't have kids, but I did like how that turned out, especially the kids' room that we get to here in a minute. I especially think that turned out pretty good. I went with this pretty masculine color scheme in the study, and I wasn't sure how I felt about it, but in the end, I think it turned out really nice. I went with these lighter curtains just because the rest of the house is so light. I think it kind of breaks out that I don't know. I want it to be. It still fits in. I used a lot of light furnishings with it, but the base structures, like the paneling and the carpet, are pretty dark. And I think it kind of adds this like classical element to a study, especially with those paintings. So here we're working on the basement, which I don't typically add a lot of basements, but I do in a lot of bigger houses just because I think it's a more luxe type thing to have. And this basement in particular is loosely based off of a house that I used to live in when I was a kid, and there was a big kind of family area off of the one side of it, and then you walk down a little bit and there was like a big bar area, and then we also had a home cinema off of the family area in the basement with some built-in shelving, and it was really nice. It was, I think, the best house that we've ever lived in. And then there was like a little bathroom and utility area, which I included over there. So here you can see this is a lot fancier than what our home cinema looked like, but yeah, I think it turned out really nice just for a family, room. Especially because I didn't really include TVs in a lot of the areas, so I think if they wanted to actually watch something as a family, they would probably utilize that room. So now we're jumping up to the third floor, and we are tackling the son's bedroom. Went with this kind of dark navy color scheme. I think that's my favorite wallpaper to use. It's my favorite color, and I probably use it way too much, but I'm not going to stop anytime soon. I used pretty much everything in the kid's stuff pack in his room. yeah, I like how it turned out. Again, using those rugs, and they kind of separate them based on color. So that one's like this dark navy rug, and I really like it. So I did include closets up in the top 2 bedrooms. And then the master obviously has those 2 big walk-in closets. I didn't include a closet for the toddler's room just because I didn't really have a whole lot of room. But that is something that if it bothers you, you can add in. I don't think it necessarily bothers me that much, and then over here on the 3rd floor, we are working on the guest bedroom, which is just simple. I kind of went with this coastal, light blue theme, Hamptons-esque. I didn't furnish this crazy because it's a guest room. You don't really want to put a whole lot in your guest room. You make it too comfortable and people want to stay. So other than that, I think we are wrapping up, and I will speak to you guys soon. Bye.